say hello to the teddy bears. On the topic of male toxicity, this is a PC nonsensical term, a concept that is conjured up by feminists that are out of touch with reality. So yeah, this will confound and piss off some people, but let's look at it for what it really is. We've all seen examples of those that want to equate everything to sex gender with some variation of the blue for boy, pink for girl mindset. Okay, that's a complicated one as far as gender, sure. And I've seen studies indicating one contributing factor is how male versus female toddlers are treated when they get upset or cry, that girls are picked up by their parent or caretaker and reassured, and boys are more likely to be left to cry it out or told boys don't cry, etc. Alright, so that's unfortunate, as no one wants to see an upset child, and it's not ideal to treat them differently. And of course there are a myriad of other examples along those lines. Someone could point to support the notion that differences in upbringing create so-called aggressive boys. But my problem with this is simply a realistic, logical, and biological one. Testosterone? Anybody remember that? If I remember correctly, boys have something like 15 times or whatever more testosterone than women do. And as this is considered a contributor to so-called aggression, how can that factor be ignored? My point being, roughly half the global population being male, it can't be considered abnormal if that's how our bodies are made, meaning it's normal for us. And this is determined by biology, hormones, and has been since the dawn of ages, and it always will be. So really what we have is a certain percent of feminists, and many male feminists are more gung-ho and obnoxious than so-called female feminists, that are trying to re-engineer society based on pseudoscience claptrap nonsense. They want to sort of wuss up all boys to meet their version of how society should be. And one of the more serious aspects of this in the last, say, 20 years or so is boys are full of energy, hyper, bouncing off the walls of school, whatever, and they're diagnosed, throwing up air quotes here, as being ADD, ADHD, and whatever else, given Adderall and all these drugs, setting up for potentially becoming addicted to drugs, stimulants, and maybe what they really need is a PE class. They need a way to burn up that energy. So do girls, by the way. We need human beings. We all need physical activity. Kids were not meant to sit inside all day and then sit inside all night, playing video games and sitting in the classroom and watching TV. The human body doesn't function properly that way. You got to have an outlet for that energy. And sitting in a classroom uninterrupted for hours and then sitting around all night, it's not good for human beings. So, some people are easygoing and calm, more laid back, maybe low energy, even lethargic by some people's standards. And other people are just spastic and hyper. So that difference does not make one right and the other wrong. It just makes us unique. We are not, human beings are not homogenous. We're all very, very different. So the whole premise of the toxic male as a stereotype, as a group, that question is just stupid. Obviously there are individual males that are toxic, just jackasses. And there are females that are toxic, just, jackasses. There's as many females that qualify as toxic through their actions and the methods that they utilize as they go through life and how they deal with things as there are males. It's just a ridiculous premise. Males seem to lead in some cases, in some studies, in depression and suicide. And that's not a toxic male condition or circumstance. It's a tragic human condition. It's due to chemical imbalance and can affect both sexes. And it has nothing to do with, people being more touchy-feely, therapy and all this nonsense. If you read what people write about toxic males, they may or may not be detrimental to themselves, and This is determined by whom? What, a gaggle of feminists? This is akin to allowing a small group of heterosexuals decide how homosexuals should act, as in they should not be homosexual, or they should walk this way, talk this way, dress this way, or whatever. It's a small group of people deciding how other people act. And what gives a minority the right, or a majority, to decide that anyone that does not think like them are wrong, or call it toxic, and then set out an agenda to normalize those other people? We are part of the animal kingdom. We're mammals, bipedal perambulators. Males act a certain way in the wild due to that's how they are born. The same applies to human males. And I point out again, testosterone is one of the reasons why. You don't want to generalize across the board with things, because that's what other people are doing when they're talking about males or toxic males or whatever. People, you should not conflate mental health issues, education, or lack of, poverty, suicide, lack of access to health care, and a plethora of other examples of economic and social issues with what a few people deem as being the cause due to a guy's normal state as being toxic. It's the same way you should not conflate rape, abuse, theft, or whatever else as being attributable to toxic male syndrome. Those are simply criminal acts, and both males and females commit crimes. That's not directly attributable to whether or not they have a penis or a vagina. There's so many other factors that determine whether someone is a criminal or not. Just being a male, just being macho by the way some people view it, masculine and whatever, does not automatically equate to a sin or a crime or being toxic or being an aberration or abnormal or whatever. Not everybody wants to live in your little box, and not all of us want to be a bunch of PC wankers. Not all of us want to be some kind of feminized version of a male, and we're not going to be, whether you like it or not. That's simply not going to happen.